Hey guys.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Today you're going to share a story.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm always the one sharing the stories, and
No,
you're just kind of like
that's
jumping
not
in.
true.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I always feel like I have like so much that happens in a week, and then it's funny because before, like yesterday, I was like, oh gosh, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to have enough to talk about? And then I was like, oh, I have so much to talk about.
This.
Yeah. And then like once I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh, we have a lot.
Always. Yeah.
Always. I don't know why I always think that we're not going to.
No, it's just like a pattern.
It is.
It's an old
such
fear.
a pattern that I need to break through.
Yeah.
Anyways. So the story I have is, so my older daughter, she has been really wanting to work, and she just turned 15. And it's funny because thinking back to when I was around 15, I was always babysitting. I did a lot of babysitting.
Yeah,
Did you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I did a lot of babysitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I started working we had this cute little pool in our neighborhood. It was kind of hard to explain, but it was just a neat little area. And we had a pool there, and they usually always hired teenagers to come work at the pool. I mean, it was a perfect summer job.
Yeah.
So I did that 2 summers before I moved out to Tucson. And it was so much fun. I think I had to have been around 15 because I could walk. And then I remembered at 16 when I was able to drive and go and drive there too. But anyways, as she's sitting there talking, I'm thinking, why do you want to go work? You don't want to go work, you know? And she says, I want to make money. I want to have my own money to do this and this and this. And, I immediately jump into my parenting role. I mean, we've been talking a lot about this is just difficult parenting. Mm-hmm. Parenting's difficult anyway.
Yeah.
And then really trying to approach it where, I now have this awareness and awakening of, working on myself. And I always seem to kind of struggle a little bit with how to parent my children now that I have this awareness. So
yeah, it's like it's unclear almost. Excuse me.
No, go ahead.
It's like the boundaries. Like where do you? Because
where do I jump in? Where do I not?
How do I guide?
Yeah.
Like, do I punish? Do I put forth my agenda?
Yeah.
Because you understand, again, this awakening process of like, okay, I'm a spiritual being. They have their own journey.
Right.
They are spiritual beings on their own journey.
Yeah.
They have chosen to be with you. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that before. Yeah. There's a lot of cool ways to think about how we as spiritual beings connect and
how we chose each other to be in a family.
Right? Mm-hmm. And everyone has their own beliefs about that. But when you really start to be in the spiritual mindset and understand that your kids are not yours.
No.
They're not yours.
That's like mind blowing to me.
Yes,
When I figured all this stuff out this last year, it was just kind of like, oh wow. So what does that mean for me?
Exactly.
What does that mean for me as our mom?
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Almost like they have nothing to do with you. You're sharing, and you're kind of like the guide.
Yeah.
But they're guiding you too. It gets complicated, and then you're kind of like, okay, but also have to be real life. Like we have real life, real things.
Yeah, we have human things that we have.
About.
Yeah.
So you can't like live in la la land.
No.
You can be like, where's their soul?
Yeah, right.
Like you do have
There's
to do
this
some
nice fine balance of it.
It is.
And it can get really tricky.
Yeah.
And I'm still really having to learn that and struggle with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it was funny because as I'm talking to her about this, I can see myself like in the moment, like I know I should stop myself from talking as I'm talking to her, but I can't. Like I couldn't stop talking. I'm like,
you're like watching yourself.
Yes.
Like, why are you
doing
saying
this?
Words right
and then
now?
she's crying, and I'm like, oh, but then I still couldn't stop myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to tell her my opinion. She didn't even ask for my opinion. She didn't ask for anything, and I'm just literally giving it to her.
Okay, so what came up?
Came up? Well, what kind of started it was she had applied to McDonald's. And just like she had gone on all by herself, she wanted to go apply to McDonald's. And I'm like, okay, the whole thing. Remember, like when we were growing up, like you're not going to go flip burgers at McDonald's. But they make a lot of money now. I mean, what do they make? Like $13, $15 an hour?
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's kind of more
like
than I make.
Than to apply, I think.
Seriously.
So she's like, hey, I'll just make some money applying.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So she had done this, and I kind of let it go and was like, whatever. Didn't think she was ever going to hear back. So she gets this text message back, like, hey, I have an interview tomorrow at 10 or whatever. And I was just kind of like, No. And then it was like not the one that I wanted her to go to, which is right up the street.
Oh, that
it was
McDonald's?
That McDonald's. You're only going to go to this one because I have to drive you, right? Because she's not even 16 yet.
Yeah.
So again, I had this whole me. Mm-hmm. It was all about me. It wasn't even about her.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
Like, poor thing. Again, like thinking about my husband too, like my poor husband, like my poor kids. So I'm sitting there just letting it go. Like, oh, you don't want to work. Why are you working? And all this stuff.
Why don't you want her to work? Like, what was the thing?
The thing, I didn't want her to go and just to go to make money. Like, my thing, like, I'll kind of dissect this a little bit because there's kind of several layers. She wanted to make money because she wants to go buy these silly things. Like, she wants to buy clothes. She wants to buy this. And I'm thinking, that's what I like to do too. Mm-hmm. But I'm just automatically judging her. So there's so many layers to it.
You hate it about yourself.
Yes.
So you hate it in her.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And she didn't ask for it, but I'm giving it to her.
Right.
That's kind of the thing is being this mother, doing this to her, just like, she didn't ask for this, I'm just giving it to her. And she's such a sweet soul that she just takes it. And she's just like,
all our kids.
Oh my gosh. God. And then you're just like, oh, why did I do this to them? Why am I doing this to them? But
it's heartbreaking.
As long as you can see it and kind of repair that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, I don't want her to work because I think she has the wrong idea about it. She just wants to go make money. She's forgetting that she's still a kid. She wants to go have fun. Again, all about me. Like, I have no idea if she's even thinking these things.
Right.
This is just me, It's so ridiculous. So as I'm driving along and she's like, and I was like, but I literally couldn't stop myself. I'm like, I want to see this.
Yeah.
So we get over to my mom's house and we're talking about it, and my mom brings up the point. She's like, well, I remember the independence and wanting to make money and this and that. And I was just like, oh yeah, I do too. I remember that and how fun it was. Like, I know. And I was just like yeah. But it also kind of finally made me wake up to be like, enough, knock it off. It's not about you.
Yeah. Like, think about yourself in her shoes.
Exactly.
So hard.
Yeah.
I know.
So we left it there. I left and went shopping with my other daughter.
I'm going to go get some key
clothes. I'm going to go get some key clothes, yeah. Just like as I'm sitting here telling her not to do this. And as I'm out with my other daughter, I'm like, I actually talked to her and I said, do you think I was a little harsh on her? And she's like, well, she's like, I understand what you mean. She's like, but, and I was just like, no, it's okay. You can be honest with me. I was like, just tell me. And she's like, well, and I said, I think I need to talk to her. And like the whole time I'm out, I'm like, oh, I need to text her. I need to talk to her, whatever. And I immediately want to just make it right. And I'm like, you need to sit with this for a minute and not automatically just jump and be like, oh, please accept my apology. Because that wasn't necessarily what I was looking for either. It was more just, I needed to process my thoughts about it and then come to her and tell her,
right,
hey, this wasn't about you. This was about me. And I'm so sorry that I dumped this all on you. And, she's like, it's okay, Mom. And I said, no, it's not. It's not okay that I keep doing this to you and, allowing this to happen. I said, however, this allowed us to have this conversation about why did you want to jump in and go get a job? And where she actually does have some other jobs lined up that she doesn't necessarily need to go work for McDonald's, but she wasn't necessarily seeing that just as much as I wasn't seeing the other things that were happening for me. So there were so many different layers to this. So it was actually a beautiful moment. But in the moment that I was unleashing on her, it didn't feel good.
I mean, and that's as you're explaining this, it's kind of like we always get the message, right? It's just you knew that's not right. Like as soon as it happened and all the things happened, you had your release, right? You had your kind of explosion, you felt crappy afterwards, and it's like she got hurt in the process, and I mean we all do this, right? But the thing is like when you are learning to be conscious, those situations where you hurt someone else, where you lash out, where you explode, they become less and less because there's far more grace.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like the pausing, when you pause, when you're conscious, when you observe yourself, and you're like, whoa, I have a lot of feelings about this.
Yeah, like, which I didn't really
exactly
know I had, you know?
But it's such a process, like depending on what your like intense triggers are.
Yeah.
It takes a long time for me, especially.
Yeah.
To hit the pause button
before
it comes tumbling out.
Yeah, I think that's, we kind of talked about this last week too. It's just kind of like, as it leaves my mouth, and it was funny because I almost felt, it was almost different when I was talking about with my husband when it left my mouth. Whereas this time it was like, I think it's because it's like, I'm her mom.
Right.
I'm allowed to have this feeling and this opinion and this emotion because I'm guiding
her.
For. Exactly.
Yeah.
And allowing that to just kind of continue on longer than I really wanted it to. But now, like you're saying, like just being aware of it and allowing that grace to happen, it's also another opportunity for me because I wasn't really able to express this before and let her see that I have faults too. I have these flaws too. And it's not about you. It's my stuff. And I need to remember that you're not my punching bag.
That is so good for kids. That is so good. And as you're talking about that, I remember, because like I'm to the point now where I can say to my kids when I feel like, no, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
And I want to like tell them off.
Yeah.
I have learned to be like, you know what, let me pray about that for a little bit.
Oh, good.
So that's like my pause button.
I need like one of those, what do they say? Like one of those words.
Right,
like
the mantra.
Something to like step yourself, to kind of stop yourself from saying something that may hurt.
But that process before you get to like the mantra and the pause button, which I have lived many, many years also doing, it's so good to let your kids see you being real.
Yeah.
And making mistakes.
Right.
And then coming back to them and being like, wow.
Did you see that? Ooh, that wasn't so good, was it?
Like,
but look how we can work through this.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, like, what skills? What a skill set to give your child.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking because I thought, what is this I want to teach her? You know, we talk about this all the time. What is it our kids need to know? What do we need to teach them, you know, for the real world, this and that? Do they need to know this in history, this of this? It's like, no, these are these things that they need to know because this is those interactions that we have. And in seeing our parents mess up, make mistakes, but then being able to come back to your children and express that and share that with them and being humble, because I was never able to do that before. I was right. I'm in control. I'm your mother. Yeah. You don't cross me. Like I was always that authoritarian type of person because I was like that with myself.
Yeah.
So of course I'm going to be like that with my kids.
Because why? There's a fear that they'll just take it way too far if you give them any room, right? Like if you show them that you can be wrong, they'll be like, oh, you're wrong again.
Yeah.
You're probably
and
wrong
put it right
time.
back in your face, right? And you're just like, ooh, I don't want to hear that again. But it's almost like, yeah, you do need to hear it again because that's another opportunity for you to have that lesson and that sharing for them to see that, oh, you are human, you are real, and it's okay. We all make mistakes, and this is how we learn.
Right. I mean, because I think once you get to that place, we're like, yeah, I make mistakes. Then when they throw it back at you, like you've been wrong before, you can be like, I have.
You're right, I have.
Right, but I'm feeling this time, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, and you can say that with some grace and with some saving their face and not being like, how dare you throw that back at me? Like all the things that we would do
my gosh.
in our own self-righteousness and our own fear as we're parenting our kids. Yeah. It's like when you come to that space where you've done like, I'm not perfect. I'm totally trying to navigate this. Yeah. I'm being real with you. I do make mistakes, but I pray for guidance and I think about this a lot. So I don't know.
I mean, it's just, there's so much involved in that. And it was such a big experience that like, this was a couple of days ago and I'm still processing it. Like even this morning, I was still kind of processing a little bit and thinking about, you know, what could I do differently? How could I stop myself before saying something? And I've had those moments before where I've been able to talk with her and she's just wanted to unleash on me, just like, oh, I'm upset about this and blah, 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 blah. And I want to immediately go into mom mode of like, well, what about this? And it's okay. And, you know, all the other stuff that we're trying to do. But at the same time, just allowing her to have her moment and not me jumping in to try to give her some wisdom where it's, you know, unless she asks for it.
Right.
And so that's also really hard too.
Yeah.
So just all these little things we're having to kind of like I was going to say relearn, but it's not really relearning. It's more just learning how to step back and let them have their experience instead of, you know, having this mom role. It's that label that we put on there being like, oh, I have to be this wise person. I have to do this and this and this and not make mistakes and all. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why do we think that we don't?
Right. I mean, it's like, and why is her experience going to be like yours?
Exactly.
And I mean,
it's probably not going to be anything near that. Yeah, and it hasn't really been.
Yeah. So it's kind of, yeah, it's just we put our own stories on our kids.
Yeah.
But what a gift. I mean, again, it's like sometimes when we're trying to be more conscious.
Yeah.
And we see ourselves not being perfect at it. We want to beat ourselves up.
Oh, gosh.
But the most beautiful thing you can do is do what you did with your daughter. Where it's like, let's come back to this.
Yeah, let's come back to this.
That
This
didn't
is
feel
like
good.
No.
Like, did that feel good to you? And then just process that.
Yeah.
And like that shows real awareness. That shows connection. Connection trumps all the crappy shit you say to your kids.
Absolutely.
Because we've all done it. We've all said it. We've all injured our kids with unconsciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just, but that beautiful gift is like being able to see that and then coming back to that connection with it.
Yeah.
And then teaching them that. Those are those big lessons that they need to have. And even though it was such a small little thing, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And until we become aware of it, we can actually like process it and then help them kind of process it to be able to do that in the future.
So true.
Yeah.
So where'd you guys end up with this?
So I talked with her later that night and just said, you know, what are your thoughts about that? She said, you know, I think you're right before about saying that, you know, maybe I shouldn't work right now. And with that job, because she's working for my parents. Yeah. She's babysitting.
Right. So she's
going to be doing like this camp that's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm like, where is it going to fit in? And I said, the other thing I'm like spewing at her was like, you have to work around their schedule. They can't work around your schedule and all this stuff, you know, instead of it saying a nicer way, whatever, we've learned that. She's like, yeah, you know, I think it'd be difficult because she doesn't know. Like, again, like I know I've been in the workforce that, you know, they basically call their schedule and you have to accommodate instead of the other way around. So she's just kind of like, yeah, and then you'd have to drive me. And I said, yes. And she's like, I think maybe I'll just wait till I'm 16 so I can drive and be able to get myself to work. And I said, great. And I said, you know, I apologize for assuming and telling you these things instead of you kind of figuring that on your own. And that's another thing that I need to work on is, you know, what do you think about this? And then in the future, I told her, I said, when this comes up or something else like this comes up, I will try my hardest to just stop and not say anything. And then let's come back to it and say, what do you think about this? Let's process it later. If you want to process. She said, yeah, I want to process it later. So she's open to, because she values my opinion.
Yeah.
She always tells me, Mom, what about this? Does this look good? Does this look good? Does this not? What do I eat? It's just like all the time. So it's constant questions.
Constant validation.
So I think that also is kind of like hard for me as a parent too, is just like, she wants my opinion, but then she doesn't. But I think this is also like with the teenagers too, or maybe even with all kids, but they do want your opinion, but then they want that independence. And so I have a hard time even figuring that out with her, or with both my girls, and just being like, well, when do I give my opinion? When do I not? And so I think at that moment I was like, oh, I'm just going to give my opinion, even though she didn't really ask. You know,
exactly.
So I told her, I said, let's try in the future. I said, you know, I will really try my hardest to just stop myself before giving my opinion, and then let's come back to it and say, what do you think about it? What do I think about it? And can we kind of like process this together?
But that's kind of hard. Just I don't know if we're going too long here, but I just kind of want to say, like, you know, that's kind of important to process. Like, why did she not come to you and be like, I want to work at McDonald's. I have these other things going on. Do you think, like, why didn't she ask that? And why is she asking your opinion about what to eat and what to wear, but not asking you a really big question about, like, how does work work? And like, could this fit? So, I mean, it's kind of like, at that point, it's like, okay, you know what? Let me kind of guide you in how this works.
Yeah.
I'm not sure maybe you understand. This is kind of how scheduling works and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, because that's the piece where I think we as parents, we can give our guidance.
Right.
Not with emotion.
Right. Not the attachment with it. Right.
Like, just like, you're stupid because you don't know.
You don't know. I've lived longer than you, you know?
Exactly. Right. I've been burned by this before.
Exactly, right. I'm going to give you my experience. And they're just like, oh, God, you know?
It's like, just the nuts and bolts. This is how it works. Yeah. Is that cool?
Right.
Like, is that cool with the other stuff you have going on? And the fact that you can't drive, is that going to feel good? Or, I don't know. Your choice. But just want to throw that out there. I don't know. So it's
interesting as you're talking about that. I'm thinking about when she has said this before. She tends to just automatically just do stuff right away without thinking about it, which is, I've done that many, many times.
Hey, Hare.
Yeah.
She's a Hare too.
Exactly. She is so my daughter, I tell you. Oh my goodness. And as I see her, I'm just like, oh boy, that's like what I would do or whatever. But it's just.
You turned out great.
Yeah. And I made it, right?
Exactly.
I'm okay. I do have a couple of bumps and bruises, but I'm okay. We're all okay. So, anyways, but that's interesting to think about that, where she asks about the other opinions about these little things, but like this is a bigger thing, and maybe just teaching her that then too. That's another also teachable moment too. Right. Instead of it being like an immediate, like, should I wear this? Should I not? Should I eat this? Should I not? Those are simple little things. Whereas these bigger ones, without teaching her how to kind of like decipher herself, I automatically just go into my opinions about it. So that's something we can talk about too. That's good. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that.
Ugh. Teenagers, they are. I mean, it's challenging. But again,
but it's so awesome. I mean, again, this whole bad experience. It wasn't a bad experience. It was an absolutely beautiful experience. All of these experiences that we would see, at least I would see in the past, is being like, oh God, this is bad, and she wants to go do this and that, and I'm like, I would lose sleep over it.
Exactly.
And worrying, yes. Now it's like, wow, I can see it now. I can process it, and then let it go, and then know that. Be aware next time something like this may happen. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Are you going to jump again? And you may.
Yeah, you might.
But you may catch yourself a little sooner.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever. But it's such a beautiful process. I love it all.
Yeah. I love that you're a fast learner, and I'm like years and years just watching myself do it over and over and over again. It's crazy.
Boy.
Anyway, awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.